Who are you really when no one is looking? How many times have you felt that there is a more authentic version of yourself hidden under layers of social expectations, fears, and conditioning? Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists in history, dedicated his life to exploring the paths that lead us to our true selves, a process he called individuation. On this journey of self-discovery, we discover that we have become who we really are not by accident, but through a conscious process of integrating the deepest and often unknown parts of our psyche. What would happen if you could finally remove the masks you wear daily and fully embrace your authentic nature? What would it be like to live in harmony with all aspects of your being, including those that you try to hide or deny? Get ready for a transformative journey through Jung's revolutionary concepts that continue decades after his death to illuminate the path to becoming who we truly are. Universal archetypes. Archetypes represent one of the most fascinating and revolutionary concepts in Jungian psychology. Jung defined them as primordial patterns or images that are part of the collective unconscious, a deep layer of the human psyche shared by all people, regardless of culture, era, or geographic location. These universal models profoundly influence our experience, even when we are not aware of their presence. Unlike personal experiences stored in our individual unconscious, archetypes are not memories acquired during our lifetime. Jung considered them innate psychic structures, comparable to biological instincts, which organize how we experience and respond to certain fundamental aspects of human existence. They represent inherited possibilities of representation, thought, and feeling that manifest themselves in recurring themes in the mythologies, religions, fairy tales, and dreams of different cultures. The archetypes themselves are unrepresentable. They exist as abstract potentialities. What we experience are its specific manifestations, the archetypal images that emerge when an archetype is activated in our psyche. For example, the mother archetype exists as a universal pattern, but its manifestations can vary enormously. From the nurturing and protective mother to the devouring mother who stifles the development of her child, from the Virgin Mary to the goddess Kali. Jung identified numerous archetypes, but some stand out for their importance in the process of personal development. The hero represents our search for identity and strength, facing challenges and overcoming obstacles. The shadow, as we saw earlier, contains repressed aspects of our personality. The sage symbolizes our search for truth and understanding. The trickster represents creative chaos and the subversion of expectations. The Great Mother and the Great Father reflect our primordial experiences of nurturing and authority. Particularly relevant to the process of becoming one's true self are the archetypes of the persona, the social mask, anima, animus, countersexual, aspects of the psyche, and most importantly, the self, the center and totality of the psyche. The archetypal self represents the potential for integration and completeness that we seek to realize throughout life. It is simultaneously the organizing center of the psyche and the wholeness that encompasses both the conscious and the unconscious. Archetypes are not merely abstract theoretical concepts. They powerfully influence our everyday lives. When we fall in love at first sight, we are often experiencing the projection of the anima or animus archetype onto the other person. When we feel an inexplicable connection to certain symbols, places, or narratives, we are often responding to archetypal content that resonates with deep aspects of our psyche. Recognizing the influence of archetypes in our life allows us to develop a more conscious relationship with these powerful forces. Instead of being unconsciously dominated by them, we can learn to dialogue with their energies and integrate them in a constructive way. For example, someone dominated by the hero archetype may constantly seek battles to prove their worth, while A conscious relationship with this archetype would allow them to channel their energy into genuinely meaningful challenges. Jung noted that archetypes often manifest themselves at critical transitional moments in life: birth, puberty, marriage, middle age, aging, and death. At these crossroads, archetypal structures offer both challenges and guidance. The midlife crisis, for example, often involves confronting the shadow archetype and the need to integrate neglected aspects of the self. On the path to becoming your true self, understanding the archetypes offers a valuable map of the psychic territory we need to navigate. They help us recognize that many of our internal struggles are not just personal, but reflect universal patterns of human experience. This understanding can bring both solace and guidance, showing that even in our most solitary experiences, we are connected to a shared psychic heritage. The integrated self. At the heart of Jungian psychology is the concept of the self with a capital S, as distinct from the ego or everyday self. This self simultaneously represents the organizing center of the psyche and the totality that encompasses all aspects of being, both conscious and unconscious. Jung considered the self as the central archetype of order, totality, and unity, representing the maximum potential for psychic integration that each individual can achieve. Unlike the ego, which is only the center of consciousness, the self encompasses the entire personality. The ego is who we think we are. The self is who we really are in our totality. This distinction is crucial to understanding the process of becoming authentic, as many people confuse ego empowerment with self-realization, when in fact, the Jungian path suggests that the ego needs to develop a proper relationship with the greater self. The integrated self does not emerge automatically. It represents the result of deliberate and often challenging psychic work. This work involves recognizing and integrating previously fragmented or alienated aspects of the psyche: the shadow, the complexes, the projections, and the diverse archetypes that influence our experience. As these parts are recognized and incorporated into consciousness, a new psychic configuration begins to emerge. Jung observed that the self often manifests itself through symbols of wholeness and centrality that appear spontaneously in dreams, fantasies, and artistic expressions. Circles, mandalas, quaternities, patterns of four elements, divine or heroic figures, and precious stones are some of the images that typically represent the self. These images emerge naturally during periods of intense psychic work, signaling that a process of integration is underway. A distinguishing feature of the integrated self is the ability to sustain paradoxes and tensions that previously seemed irreconcilable. The person who achieves greater integration does not eliminate their inner conflicts, but develops the ability to consciously contain them, recognizing that seemingly opposite polarities can coexist within the greater whole. For example, strength and vulnerability, rationality and intuition, autonomy and connection. All these seemingly contradictory qualities find their place in the integrated personality. The integrated self is also characterized by a transformed relationship with time and purpose. Instead of living exclusively oriented towards external goals and social validation, one begins to experience a sense of purpose that emerges from within. Jung called this internal teleology, the sense that our life is moving not only toward conscious goals, but also toward a deeper fulfillment that transcends our conscious intentions. This integration brings with it a change in the quality of everyday experience. Activities, relationships, and challenges that were previously experienced through the filter of a defensive or insecure ego are now experienced with greater presence and authenticity. There's less need to manipulate impressions or control results, and more ability to be genuinely present in the flow of experience. An often misunderstood aspect of the integrated self is that it does not represent a state of perfection or absence of suffering. Jung was explicit in stating that integration does not eliminate life's difficulties, but transforms our relationship with them. The integrated person continues to face challenges, losses, and limitations, but approaches them from a more stable center and with a greater capacity to extract meaning from even the most painful experiences. The process of integration of the self also transforms our relationship with others. As we become more aware and accepting of our own inner complexity, we develop a greater ability to see others in their entirety, without the distortions of overprojection. This does not mean the absence of conflicts in relationships, but an expanded ability to navigate these conflicts with authenticity and respect for the otherness of the other. Jung noted that the movement toward the integrated self often coincides with a greater openness to the spiritual dimension of existence. This does not necessarily imply adherence to formal religious systems, but reflects an expansion of consciousness that transcends limited egoic concerns and recognizes deeper dimensions of meaning and connection. The self, in this sense, serves as a bridge between the personal and the transpersonal, between the individual and the universal.